The next generation of VPN privacy is here. Stack Overflow selling user submissions to OpenAI, another Proton user arrested after a court order for metadata, and a lot more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 177, where we are keeping you private and secure with the latest news in the past week. I'm Henry from Techlore.
I'm Nathan from The New Oil.
As always, we just want to thank the people who are supporting this podcast, keeping it free and keeping it consistent for all of you so you all can stay safe and get that privacy and security news every week. We couldn't do it without people on Patreon. You can join them at patreon.com/surveillancepod. And it's not just for us. We also like to give you all some perks. So you'll get automatic RSS and videos that don't have these promo segments in there. So you don't have to worry about skipping them if you are like driving and you don't want to skip through stuff and stuff like that. And also we do Q&As, and you can ask us questions and engage with our community there. So that's a really good thing, and it keeps us consistent and it keeps us growing and expanding this operation. If you don't like Patreon, we're also on LibrePay, and we also support direct contributions via Monero as well for people who want to support us the most privately. So the highlight story this week is actually some really fun stuff, and it's going to come from the Mullvad VPN, which is some of our favorite VPNs out there. Everything they do is open source and they're very transparent, but they have this new blog post here that's titled Introducing Defense Against AI-Guided Traffic Analysis. I'm going to quote the article here. Even if you have encrypted your traffic with a VPN or the Tor network, so this applies to both of them, advanced traffic analysis is a growing threat against your privacy. So they're introducing something called data, but D-A-I-T-A. Through constant packet sizes, random background traffic and data pattern distortion is pretty much what they're going to be doing to battle against sophisticated traffic analysis. Now, some context. Pretty much if you're somebody who's uploading the same kinds of packets, the same kinds of traffic, even if you're on a different VPN server or you're cycling your sessions through the Tor network, the theory here is that you can still be analyzed based on those patterns that you create that are more consistent with yourself. And so if you're very unique, those types of patterns can really expose who you are and be detrimental to your privacy. So they're trying to tackle this issue by pretty much randomizing your traffic with other things to help you not be as, it doesn't help you stand out as easily. So the way that data works to accomplish this is one, constant packet sizes. So the size of network packets can be particularly revealing, especially small packets. So data makes all packets sent over the VPN the same constant size. So it doesn't matter what kind of traffic you're using, it's going to be the same. Two, random background traffic. So by unpredictably interpersing dummy packets into the traffic, data masks the routine signals to and from your device, which makes it harder for observers to distinguish between meaningful activity and background noise. So they're also randomizing some data in there to make it harder to tell what's going on and what's legitimate. And there's actually a third point here, which is data pattern distortion. When visiting websites or doing any other activity that causes significant traffic, data modifies the traffic pattern by unpredictably sending out cover traffic in both directions between client and VPN server. This distorts the recognizable pattern of a website visit, resisting accurate identification of the website. So this is built using the open source Maybe Not Defense framework, which Mullvad helps to fund development for. The work has been academically peer-reviewed and is published as open access. To begin with, Data 2024.3 Beta 1 is available in their VPN app on Windows 10 and 11. So if you're a Mullvad customer, you can get access to this in the beta on Windows 10 and 11, and hopefully we see this roll out pretty soon to other people. And this is very cool because I haven't actually seen many people try to tackle this issue directly. Even the mitigations I've seen from the Tor project haven't seemed to be as, sophisticated of an approach to dealing with this as what Mullvad's trying to do. So Mullvad's really been taking a step up the last couple of years, which they always have, but the last couple of years have been really impressive. And it's really cool to see better privacy protections for VPNs. And it'd be cool to see other VPNs follow suit.
I'm really happy to see this because ever since we covered that story about, what was it called, Augury or something a couple of years ago that Wired wrote about, where it's this private defense contractor who's like, they claim that they're correlating the traffic for I think they said something like 93% of the internet. Ever since we read that story, I've tried to be a little better about using Tor because one of the things they said that made it harder for them was multi-hop stuff. Like you said, Tor is not immune to this, but it's certainly harder. And same thing with multi-hop VPNs. So that's something I've tried to use a lot more, but at the same time, it can be even for me, it can be kind of slow. And I'm not normally super picky about my internet speeds, but it can be a little hard to deal with sometimes. So I think this was really cool to see roll out. And I think something that I thought of when you started reading this story is it's important to remember, for all the crap we're giving AI right now, AI is and always has been really good at mass analyzing data sets. And that doesn't always mean that it's accurate. You know, we love to poke fun at all the times that it fails, but a lot of the time it's right. We covered another story a year or two ago about, I think it was Meta had developed a facial recognition that could tell your sexual orientation. How do you think it does that? By examining millions of faces of people that it already knows the answer. It just finds things that humans don't think to look for. That's really what it does, is it's high-tech pattern recognition. Again, sometimes it gets it wrong, but it's just, I guess my point is, like, I do think this is a genuine concern, is especially with the rise of AI and everybody's baking AI into everything. 90% of it's just a bubble that's waiting to pop, but there is that 10% that's actually going to be like, oh, this works really well. And I think this could be one of those potential cases. So it is nice to see them stepping up and introducing defenses against that. Although I guess I'm a little surprised it took somebody so long to care about that, because we've known that traffic analysis was a thing for so long. Maybe it's just now it's becoming like economical. Either way, I think it's super cool. I'm not going to jump in the beta simply because I'm not a beta kind of person, but I'm definitely looking forward to when that rolls out. That's all we have for our headline story. So we're going to start on our data breaches. We'll start off in Australia, where a mass hack has exposed more than 60,000, including victims of family violence and sexual assault. This comes from Monash Health, who confirmed on May 3rd that it had been embroiled in an external data breach involving document scanning business Zicro Data. The federal government's national cybersecurity coordinator revealed late on Friday that the breach had affected other government entities that were also Zicro Data clients. The Monash Health attack compromised the personal information collected by family violence and sexual support units in Melbourne's East between 1970 and 1993, affecting about 4,000 people. Basically, they still haven't determined the full extent of this, like in terms of exactly what data was compromised, I think. So disclosures will occur once there is certainty around the information affected, the safety of the victims, and readiness of support services. And then the article just kind of goes on to talk about some other health-related services that have been hit around the world in recent months.
The UK's confirmed Ministry of Defence payroll data exposed in a data breach. So they were mainly names and banking details, but in a few cases, addresses were also available, and it's estimated that 270,000 payroll records were exposed. There's no indication that data was stolen, so it was just an exposure, as far as they know.
DocGo discloses a cyber attack after cybercriminals steal patient health data. As part of DocGo's investigation, it was determined that the attackers stole protected health information from a quote-unquote limited number of healthcare records for the company's US-based ambulance transportation business. Unfortunately, that is really all we know at this time.
US Patent and Trademark Office confirms another leak of filers' address data. That includes their private addresses, which appeared in public records between August 23rd, 2023 and April 19th, 2024. They said that no addresses appeared in regular searches on the agency's website, but 14,000 applicants' private addresses were included in bulk data sets that they publish online to aid academic and economic research. They took blame, saying it's from when they transitioned to a new IT system, and importantly, they said this incident was not the result of malicious activity. Upon discovery of the lapse, the agency said it blocked access to the impacted bulk dataset, removed files, implemented a patch to fix the exposure, tested the solution, and re-enabled access.
MoveIt is still striking. I think it's literally been a year as of this month, and we're still hearing, this time from the University System of Georgia, 800,000 exposed in 2023 MoveIt attack. So University Systems of Georgia is a state government agency that operates 26 public colleges and universities in the U.S. state of Georgia with over 340,000 students. This compromised full or partial last four digits of social security number, date of birth, bank account numbers, and federal income tax documents with tax ID numbers. Given that the number of impacted individuals is larger than the number of students under the USG, and considering the type of information, the incident presumably also affects prior students, academic staff, contractors, and other personnel.
Dell has disclosed a data breach of customers' physical addresses. So this was an email shared by several people on social media, and the computer maker Dell wrote that it was investigating an incident which contains a database with limited types of customer information related to purchases from Dell. The person selling the stolen data claimed the dataset include information on 49 million people, like full names, full addresses, the system service tag, customer number, and more.
And our last story, the Ohio Lottery had a ransomware attack that impacted over 538,000 individuals. This impacted their names, dates of birth, and social security numbers. It's really all we got for that one, so very unfortunate.
All right, and now company news, and this is a little bit of a saga here, but Stack Overflow, for people who don't know, is essentially a place where you ask people questions and they get back to you. It's typically associated with programming, but it's pretty much expanded to a lot of different areas, and they've signed a deal with OpenAI to supply data to its models. This includes things through its ChatGPT chatbot platform, and it should get better over time at answering programming-related questions. At the same time, Stack Overflow will benefit from OpenAI's expertise in developing new generative AI integrations on Stack Overflow. The first set of features will go live by the end of June, and the tie-up with OpenAI is a remarkable reversal for Stack Overflow, which initially banned responses from ChatGPT on its platform over fears of spam. Traffic to the platform has reportedly dipped significantly since the release of capable new generative AI models last year, models that in many cases were trained on data from Stack Overflow. So now, as it cut costs, Stack Overflow is pursuing licensing agreements with AI providers. The company's deal with OpenAI comes after Stack Overflow partnered with Google to enrich Google's Gemini models with Stack Overflow data and work with Google to bring more AI-powered features to its platform. Stack Overflow stressed at the time that the agreement wasn't exclusive. Just kind of a side story along with that one is Stack Overflow suspends users for editing posts in OpenAI protests. So after this announcement, some users wanted to delete their answers, including those with the most votes. But Stack Commerce does not generally allow the deletion of posts if the question has any answers. So Epic Games UI designer Ben said he tried to edit his highest rated answers and replace them with a message protesting the partnership with OpenAI. However, Ben shared an image of Stack Overflow restoring the edited posts to the original answer and then suspending his account.
Our next couple of stories come from Google, and they're both pretty quick. The first one is that the Pixel 8a has officially been announced. It's about $500, and it will have 7 years of updates. There's a lot more in there in terms of like the official specs and whatnot. As a privacy podcast, those are kind of the big things we care about. 7 years of updates, $500, supported with all those operating systems. And then the next story from Google is that Google is changing how you set up two-factor authentication. So the short version is you're not going to be required to give over a phone number anymore, at least for 2FA. I don't know. They might still try to flag your account and say like, hey, are you sure you're not a bot? Give us a SIM number. But beyond that, I'll go ahead and quote the article. Instead of entering your phone number first to enable 2FA, you can now add a second step method to your account, such as authenticator or hardware security key, to get things set up. This should make it safer to turn on 2FA as it lets you avoid using less secure SMS verification.
Microsoft is planning to lock down Windows DNS like never before. Here's how. So they provided a peek at comprehensive framework that aims to sort out the DNS mess so that it's better locked down inside Windows, called Zero Trust DNS or ZTDNS. The main features are 1, encrypted and cryptographically authenticated connections between end-user clients and DNS servers, and 2, the ability for admins to tightly restrict the domains these servers will resolve. So they say that this encryption to DNS often obscures the visibility admins need to prevent user devices from connecting to malicious domains or detect anomalous behavior inside a network. So as a result, DNS traffic is either sent in clear text or it's encrypted in a way that allows admins to decrypt it in transit, though it is essentially a man-in-the-middle attack. ZTDNS aims to solve this decades-old problem by integrating the Windows DNS engine with the Windows filtering platform, which is the Windows firewall essentially, directly into the client devices. So by default, the firewall will deny resolutions to all domains except those enumerated to in allow lists. So a separate allow list will contain IP address subnets that clients need to run authorized software. There's a lot more technical details in the article.
That'll bring us into the research section, and the first one is kind of a big deal. It says why your VPN may not be as secure as it claims. So VPN companies market their services as a way to prevent anyone from snooping on your internet usage, but new research suggests that this is a dangerous assumption when connecting to a VPN via an untrusted network, because attackers on the same network could force a target's traffic off the protection provided by their VPN without triggering any alerts to the user. According to this article, when a device initially tries to connect to a network, it broadcasts a message to the entire local network stating that it is requesting an internet address, which I guess kind of makes sense because it may not necessarily know which device is the DHCP server. Normally, the only system on the network that notices this request and replies is the router responsible for managing the network to which the user is trying to connect. Researchers say that they have discovered it's possible to abuse an obscure feature built into the DHCP standard so that other users on the local network are forced to connect to a rogue DHCP server. The feature being abused here is known as DHCP option 121. It allows a server to set a route on the VPN user system that is more specific than those used by most VPNs. Abusing this option effectively gives an attacker on the local network the ability to set up routing rules that have a higher priority than the routes for the virtual network interface that the target's VPN creates. There are several ways to minimize the threat from rogue DHCP servers on an unsecured network. One is using a device powered by the Android operating system, which apparently ignores DHCP option 121. Relying on a temporary wireless hotspot controlled by a cellular device you own also effectively blocks this attack. So, if you're using your laptop and you turn your phone into a hotspot.
This tool shows some Telegram users' approximate physical locations. There's a tool dubbed Closed Circuit Telegram Vision, or CCTV, piggybacking off an intended feature of Telegram called Find People Nearby, which is disabled by default. The typical purpose of that is to find other Telegram users nearby, but the new tool lets anyone search globally for people who have the setting turned on. So the author downloaded CCTV, set the coordinates to a specific location, and then ran the tool. In one test, the tool found around 70 Telegram users. Jason then, who's the co-founder of 404 Media, then confirmed that the users found by the tool were the same ones that his own Telegram app told him were nearby. In other words, CCTV let them search for nearby Telegram users despite being nowhere near them. They also tested the tool in other faraway cities, including Moscow. Telegram's anonymously run press team account told 404 Media in a message that the optional feature, People Nearby, was created specifically for people who want to broadcast their location to others. It is always disabled by default.
And just to add on to that, as an administrative detail, I apologize. This article is now paywalled. 404 has been requiring people to create a free account and log in to read a lot of their articles to prevent AI scraping. But most of their articles are free. This one was free when I read it, so I apologize for people who want to read more about this and can't. You can maybe try a web archive, or maybe someone else has reposted it, but I did not. Sorry. Ghost Stripe attack haunts self-driving cars by making them ignore road signs. The technique is undetectable to the human eye, but could be deadly to Tesla and Baidu Apollo drivers as it exploits the sensors employed by both brands, specifically the CMOS camera sensors. It basically involves using LEDs to shine patterns of light on road signs so that the car's self-driving software fails to understand the signs. It's a classic adversarial attack on machine learning software. And then the article kind of goes into detail about how this works, and they go on to say, so far all of this has been demonstrated before, yet these researchers not only distorted the appearance of the sign as described, they said they were able to do it repeatedly in a stable manner. Rather than try to confuse the classifier with a single distorted frame, the team were able to ensure every frame captured by the cameras looked weird, making the attack technique practical in the real world.
Now we're going to go into politics. So despite big tech lobbying, Maryland passes 2 internet privacy bills. The Maryland legislature passed 2 bills over the weekend limiting tech platforms' ability to collect and use consumers' data. The governor is expected to sign one of those bills, the Maryland Kids Code. If signed into law, the other bill, the Maryland Online Privacy Act, will go into effect in October 2025. The legislation would limit platforms' ability to collect user data and let users opt out of having their data used for targeted advertising and other purposes. Together, the bills would significantly limit social media and other platforms' ability to track their users. Lawmakers say the goal is to protect children, but tech companies say the bills are a threat to free speech. One such bill, the Kids Online Safety Act, has not been put to a vote in Congress despite having broad support in the Senate. Part of the Maryland Kids Code will go into effect much sooner, which is the Maryland Age Appropriate Design Code Act on October 1st, which bans platforms from using system design features to increase, sustain, or extend the use of the online product, which includes auto-playing media, rewarding users for spending more time on the platform, and spamming users with notifications. Another part of the legislation prohibits certain video games, social media, and other platforms from tracking users who are younger than 18.
Met police officers accessed controversial facial recognition site 2,000 times. Scotland Yard has banned officers from using a controversial facial recognition search engine after it was accessed thousands of times from the Metropolitan Police computers. MPs have warned that the technology is, quote, invasive and dangerous, unquote, and called for it to be banned from open access. Data released under Freedom of Information rules show that the PIMI's website, which is based in Tbilisi, Georgia, was visited from the Metropolitan Police computers 2,337 times in a 3-month period since the start of this year. The Met, along with other UK police forces, already has access to facial recognition software capable of matching images of suspects with official databases. But unlike those tools, PIM-Eyes could be used by an officer or staff member without an official audit trail of searches or safeguards around which images are submitted. The Met insisted that the 2,337 hits recorded on the search engine from its computers did not mean the site was accessed to carry out a facial recognition search, and said that officers may have been researching PIM-Eyes in light of recent controversy about the software. Nevertheless, after this outlet put the figures to Scotland Yard, it said that it had, quote, strengthened existing safeguards around the use of facial recognition and blocked all access to the site from its devices.
New government app to sound alert if criminals are using your private information. And this is from Australia. And Attorney General Mark Dreyfus has announced an $11 million budget commitment for an online register that informs people if their data is being used to steal money or fake an identity. The Credential Protection Register was set up after the high-profile Optus data breach, allowing exposed Optus customers to check if their personal credentials were being used maliciously. The government says it has blocked 300,000 hacking attempts and now labors expanding the program to allow the broader community, including those who have been caught up in a data breach, to proactively check if their details have been compromised via the app. It's scheduled to be in operation by the end of the year. The government's confident the register itself will not be susceptible to hacking attempts because it says the tool does not act as a database and stores no personal information.
Also in Australia, Google releases a new tool to enable Australians to find their personal information and request removal. So this is the Results About You tool, which was already released in the US, I believe, and maybe other places, but I think just the US. It is available for the first time as of this past Tuesday to coincide with Privacy Awareness Week, and it allows users to see how they show up in search results. They can then request removal of results that contain personally identifiable information such as phone numbers, emails, or home addresses via the Google app. Users are also able to subscribe to alerts to find out if new results containing their personal information appear. Google will evaluate the content of web pages sought to be removed, quote, to ensure that we're not limiting the availability of other information that is broadly useful, for instance, in news articles, unquote. And of course, removing contact information from Google search doesn't remove it from the web, which is why you may wish to contact the hosting site directly if you're comfortable doing so. The Prime Minister last week announced that the government would introduce legislation to outlaw the release of private information online with intent to cause harm, aka doxing, as part of a wider reform of the Privacy Act.
All right, free and open source news, and this one definitely made the rounds a lot. So Proton Mail discloses user data leading to arrest in Spain. So the core of the controversy stems from Proton Mail providing the Spanish police with the recovery email address associated with the Proton Mail account of an individual using the pseudonym blah, blah, blah. They're suspected of doing different things to different terrorist stuff. But upon receiving the recovery email from Proton Mail, Spanish authorities further requested Apple to provide additional details linked to that email, eventually leading to the identification of the individual. The reason we're sharing this is that the case is noteworthy as it involves a series of requests across different jurisdictions and companies, which kind of just highlights the complexity of how difficult it can be and how much effort some people are willing to do to find certain people. So like before, Proton Mail's compliance with these requests is bound by Swiss law. That's nothing they don't deny nor no one else denies, which mandates cooperation with international legal demands that are formalized through proper channels, which are the Swiss court system. So just to really outline here, this person put in their iCloud email as their recovery address in their Proton account, which clearly is not end-to-end encrypted. And so Proton essentially just gave the authorities that email, and then they went and knocked on Apple's door, and Apple essentially gave up all the information about that person. So another thing from Proton provides privacy by default and not anonymity by default, because anonymity requires certain user actions to ensure proper OPSEC, like not adding your Apple account as an optional recovery method. Note, Proton does not require adding a recovery address, as this information can in theory be turned over under Swiss court order, as terrorism is against the law in Switzerland. So that was from Proton as an official thing. Recovery and verification emails are not the same. So Proton's documentation says that verification emails are hashed, which might make it harder for them to disclose that, but recovery emails clearly are able to be retrieved.
Our next one is also from Proton. It's pretty quick. Proton Pass has introduced enhanced identity protection with Pass Monitor. So this includes 4 layers of security. There's dark web monitoring. Quote, we scan illicit data marketplaces on the dark web to check if your Proton addresses, email aliases, and up to 10 custom email addresses have been leaked. If we find anything, we will alert you immediately so you can take quick action to secure your accounts. Password health. This is like a checkup for your account security. We'll let you know if you have any weak or reused passwords that need to be updated. Inactive 2-factor authentication. Pass will identify accounts where you can enable 2FA. And then Sentinel, which was released last year, it uses AI and human analysis to detect and block account takeover attacks, and they are adding that to the Proton Pass monitor. So password health and 2FA checks are included in Proton Pass free plans. So even if you're not paying, you will get those. You can get dark web monitoring, Sentinel, and quote-unquote other advanced security features with the Plus plan. Monitor will be available to everyone on all devices over the next few days. So actually, by the time you're listening to this, it may already be available to everyone.
We actually have a lot of password manager news. We're going to talk about Bitwarden and then KeePass right after. So Bitwarden has 2 things. So they have passkey support for iOS, which has been released, and it's on a GitHub page for those who want to see that in the sources. And also, Bitwarden's transition from Manifest v2 to v3, which is a new extension technology. So the following changes are happening. So 1, it's heavily limiting the usage of remotely executed code within the browser extension. 2, it's limiting how thoroughly and frequently a browser extension can intercept and interact with web requests as a user browses the internet. 3, it's limiting the shared memory space to 10 megabytes. And 4, it's providing guardrails for how browser extensions can trigger arbitrarily executed or dynamically injected code. 5, removing redundancies within the browser extension's API to provide better developer experience. And 6, moving the core background logic of the extension from background pages to service workers. Bitwarden has essentially had to comply with all of those requirements for v3, and they've already supported most of those changes in the Manifest v2 extension due to a strong company stance on security and privacy, making it really easy for them to move to v3, as what they said. So the move from background pages to service workers, however, were different, and they did have to renovate quite a few things to make that happen, but it seems like they have been able to figure it out, and now they are transitioning to v3. And then just to finish out the password manager news, KeePass XC, which is a KeePass client, released 2.7.8, which also includes passkey support improvements, as well as other quality of life fixes. So if you use KeePass XC, get yourself updated.
Our next FOSS story comes from Mozilla, who is doing something great with Firefox for once. They are going to protect Firefox users from bounce trackers. So I'm going to quote the article here. Bounce tracking is a technique where a user clicks a link but ends up reaching their intended destination via an intermediary tracking page. This allows trackers to place and read first-party cookies, which are not blocked by browsers, unlike third-party cookies. For instance, imagine a user on flowers.example clicks a link to books.example. At the last moment, the tracker active on the former site reroutes a link through tracker.example. The user first lands on this page, which then redirects them to books.example, enabling tracker.example to identify that the user is interested in both flowers and books. If tracker.example manages to inject itself into the user's browsing pattern frequently enough, it can build a detailed profile of the user. To combat this, Mozilla has announced a feature called Bounce Tracking Protection, which will regularly cleanse Firefox of tracking data every 24 hours. The browser will utilize heuristic detection methods to identify and recognize bounce trackers. Currently, Bounce Tracking Protection is available in an early test version of Firefox, the nightly version, to be specific. Although it is not fully enabled yet, data is being collected to refine the detection. Once the feature is stable, Mozilla will activate it in the test version and automatically clear tracker data.
Ubuntu is being criticized for bug blocking installation of .deb packages. So .deb is pretty much a way to install Debian packages, which is what Ubuntu is based on. For those who don't know, Ubuntu has moved towards something called Snap, which is essentially their own way of installing packages through their own ecosystem. And pretty much the claim here is that when you double click on a downloaded deb package, which Ubuntu is supposed to be compatible with, you're going to see an error that says there's no app installed for Debian packed files. And if you right click and choose to open it with the Software Center, which should be installing those packages, you're in for another annoyance because the Software Center will go into eternal loading. And it may look like it's doing something, but it will just go on forever. Canonical, which is the developer of Ubuntu, said they actually created an issue ticket for this problem in September of 2023, and they announced 2 weeks ago they returned to the discussion to fix this next cycle. but they don't have the capacity to fix it anytime soon. So people are pretty much accusing them of favoring Snap and trying to find every way imaginable to make Snap the default, which they already have been doing throughout the operating system. So that's kind of the accusation here. As far as auto installation of downloaded deb files, you have to install something like GDEBI to bring back this feature. Cake Wallet just released ledger support for the Cake app. So if you're someone who uses Cake Wallet and you might be sending us Monero, there's currently now support. You can use your ledger, the hardware wallet, directly with Cake if you update, and it supports Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Polygon. So that's something that I know the devs at Cake have been really hard on working for a long time. So
with that, we'll move into Misfits. And on the topic of Cake Wallet and Monero, we have some bad news. Local Monero / Agoradesk will be winding down its operations. Quoting the article, after almost 7 years of operation, due to a combination of internal and external factors, we have made the difficult decision to close our platform. Quick pause for those who don't know, Local Monero, soon to be, was a website where you could trade Monero directly with other people for cash, PayPal, Zelle, whatever. Anyways, they go on to say, fortunately, the Monero ecosystem has matured a lot over these years, and with the imminent launch of Haveno and other DEXs like Sarai, Atomic Swaps, the coming edition of FCMP, full blockchain anonymity set to replace Rings of 16, as well as the continuity and rapidly accelerating development of the Monero protocol, we're confident that Monero's future is bright with or without our platform. So this will be a phased shutdown, effective immediately. There's no new registrations, so you can't go sign up for local Monero if you're like, oh, I just found out about this. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. As of the 14th, which is this coming week, there will be no new trades allowed, and then the site itself will shut down in November. So I think they had an escrow wallet, or like each user had an escrow wallet where like the money was held until the exchange was made. So if you're a local Monero or Agoradesk user, be sure to go take your money out of the escrow wallet or else you will lose it.
The last story is BetterHelp is going to pay almost $8 million to 800,000 people in health data sharing settlement. So this was founded in 2013, and BetterHelp is supposed to be an alternative to face-to-face therapy sessions. There was an investigation done into the handling of customer data, and the FTC revealed in March 2023 that the service collected without consent data from its app users or visitors of its websites, even from people that had not signed up for a counseling session. And they actually shared this data, right? Mental health data with Facebook, Snapchat, Criteo, and Pinterest. The data included email addresses, IP addresses, answers from preliminary health questionnaires during sign-up processes, which came with a promise of not disclosing personal health information outside limited purposes like counseling services. And that's all we got for the week. So again, we have some really exciting stuff for VPNs, and I hope that Mullvad continues pushing that out. It makes it out of beta, and I hope other people can hop on that train and include that in their own VPNs. Stack Overflow is selling user submissions to OpenAI. Don't edit your answers or they will re-edit them to make them what they used to be. And another Proton user was arrested after a court order for metadata. Again, if you like this podcast and want to contribute to it and keep us growing and expanding, and we've been really focusing on trying to stay consistent and improve our production quality at the same time, which for those who have made anything or done anything in the world know is hard to do. But we've been trying to do that, and patreon.com/surveillancepod is a great way to pretty much not only contribute to us, but we can give back to you through various tiers and various little tokens to help you guys out and give you a better little ecosystem. We also have Liberapay down in the description. It's an alternative to Patreon for those who don't like Patreon. And we also have Monero, and Nate was telling me in between stories that he's been seeing some tips over there for Monero. So we really appreciate all of you sending us Monero. We don't know who you are, but we love the support either way. And again, a great way to support this podcast is to share it around with your friends and family. We also have surveillance clips if you want to see individual stories, so you can just share like 3 or 4 minute clips with people instead of sending them an hour-long podcast. And give it a like, share it around, give us a rating if that's an option where you're listening from, and we'll see you all next week.